What if I told you that there's a way to unlock millions in hidden revenue in your business today without blowing up your sales-led funnel? And so today in B2B SaaS, we ran a study at Productled and found out that only 3% of buyers prefer to talk to someone in sales first in their buying journey. And a whopping 97% of people prefer to try before they buy. Yet, here's the kicker. Most companies still lead with demos, and they're chasing a ton of low value leads while their enterprise deals stall at the end of the day. So it's a huge distraction for your sales team in many, many cases when you're working on accounts that are just way too small. Yet, what do you do about it? In the next 10 minutes, what I'm gonna walk you through is a 7-part framework of how to go from sales-led to product-led. There's actually nothing this deep and nerdy as far as how to actually do this in your business. And I'm gonna share with you 3 key things. The first piece is we're gonna go through just what is PLG on a spectrum. It's not an all or nothing bet. We're also gonna go through how to get a CFO approved business case that you need to actually get the green light to go down this path. The last thing is we're gonna lay out a battle-tested roadmap that has been used by Boomi, Keep, and other very successful companies that have made the switch from sales-led to product-led and generated billions of dollars in self-serve revenue throughout all of this. And so the first thing I wanna dive into is really this mindset shift from sales-led to product-led. So a lot of people think, is it just product-led or is it sales-led? Which camp am I in? And we kind of all get our pitchforks up and we're like, I'm more sales-led, and I'm more product-led. And then many people think, well, I'm not either. And here's the kicker. Most people sit somewhere in the middle at the end of the day. So product-led growth is a spectrum. And so in the far right-hand side where it's really small accounts, let's think of chess.com as an example. Very small, average contract value. It has to be completely self-serve for the business model to work. So pure product-led one end. And then in the middle, we have what I call product-led sales. So this is something where it's anywhere from 1,000 to 50,000 average contract value. Can go much higher, but let's just go with that for now. And in this case, it might be a little bit of, hey, we have maybe a technical support specialist reach out if somebody's having issues, or it could be an onboarding coach, or also a salesperson that can actually help champion and go through and build a business case internally with a company if they need that extra help. And on the far right-hand side, anything above 50,000 annual contract value, that's usually pure sales-led. You have to have a sales call to go through the process, and that can still be a value-driven consultative sale, but that is where I would say, okay, it makes a ton of sense to have somebody else go through that process, and they should probably talk to somebody because you're probably solving a very complicated problem that needs a little extra help for them to understand how to solve it. So that's the first thing. I just wanted you to understand that mindset shift. Now, the second way when it comes to the compelling case for product-led growth, why even do this? I wanna break it down into 3 core pieces. So the first thing is just think about the revenue impact. On average, across all of our clients, 400 plus to date, there's 25% faster sales cycles. So this is just wild. Now, whenever clients are well, how do you do that? It really just comes down to, hey, we're making it a lot more easy for people to get to value in the product. And because we're doing that, well, it's just they like the product more. They understand the value prop on their own. You don't have to tell them that. And because they understand the value prop on their own, they just understand the value. And so they upgrade just without talking or asking as many questions. The other thing is, especially if you're going from sales to product-led, you'll see 20 to 30% more signups. And this is fantastic because let's face it, if we go back to that initial stat, 97% of people in your market, they want to try before they buy. They don't want your demo, as amazing as the demo sounds. So you'll just get more signups from people who are earlier on in their customer journey, but that's actually a good thing because instead of them signing up for a competitor's alternative solution, they're signing up to yours and using it. The next big piece is you will have higher margin revenue. So a lot of times whenever you sell a product through somebody in sales, well, they take a nice commission, whether it's 5 or 15, sometimes even as high as 20% of the commission. With your product, well, it's just an amazing salesperson that does not charge in commission. Now, you will have to invest in it to build a product that sells itself, but you on that revenue are getting a lot higher of a margin. The other thing too is you'll notice you can use your product for expansion. And this is just fantastic because your product can automatically identify and segment people to understand, okay, who is actually using this product and who should we upgrade? And so you can get 15 to even 30% more people upgrading just through expansion throughout the product experience, whether that's through in-app product bumpers where you notify people, hey, like there's this amazing deal, you qualify, or we recommend people who use this product also use this add-on to save more value. And so you can have a ton of fun going through that part. Now, the second bucket of benefits when it comes to product-led growth really just comes down to the cost savings. So there's a ton of things here that you will save. And the first thing is just customer acquisition costs. So on average, it's about 44% less customer acquisition costs, which is wild. Now, the big reason why here is that many people, whenever they're sales-led, they're always focusing on the people at the top. So, oh yeah, let's reach out to the VP of sales. And if you're buying, let's say a lead list, or you're trying to acquire that person, it's very expensive because everyone in your industry is focusing on the buyers. Whereas if you're starting to focus on the users, well, that's amazing for you because nobody else is really focusing in on those people. So you can get them for a lot less, and they will be your biggest advocate when it comes to making that business case with people. So the other thing is really just competitive advantages. So why do PLG companies win? First thing is just a predictable growth engine. When working with a lot of our clients, the coolest part is a lot of times, like halfway through the month, let's say it's July 15th, I'm like, I know exactly, to a degree, where you're gonna end up by the end of the month. And that's just because I know what the free to paid conversion rate is. I know how many signups they had at the first 15 days. And so it became just predictable. And nothing can really compete with that whenever you're building a business. Sometimes with sales, like companies are like, yeah, I think this quarter we're gonna close it out strong. Woo. And then it doesn't happen because it's very unpredictable, especially with those bigger deals. So the other part is you can definitely operate in places or different markets in neglected segments. So where other people aren't focusing in on because it's not affordable for them to focus on those smaller companies, you could do it with a product-led motion because you just have a much more efficient business and way to serve that level of customer. And it also helps you scale a lot faster globally. And you also can take advantage of just operational efficiency. And so this is probably one of the most underrated pieces, which is a sales-led business. As you grow, you are just adding more sales headcount. And let's say you're at 50 million in recurring revenue, you probably have about 150 people in sales. And so to get to 100 million, you need 300 people in sales. And as you can see, it just gets very, very hard to scale that level of organization. And many founders come to us at that point where they're like, wow, this is just hectic. It's a humongous organization, a lot of layers of management, and it becomes not that fun to operate it. Versus with a product-led motion, hey, it's a lot more of a compounding growth engine because although your growth team might focus on your product-led growth motion and improve it like 1% that month, like whoopee, they did the same thing the next month. They're building a growth engine for your business that compounds over time and really helps you grow faster without having to hire more people. And so that's why you will find a lot of product companies with a extremely high revenue per employee, where they're able to operate with, 5 million in recurring revenue with like 3 people. And there's many other instances like that, like Tally, which is a 5-person team with 3 million in recurring revenue. And so that's just only possible through product-led growth. And the core concept here, to really wrap up the core benefits of product-led growth, is think of your product as your best employee. That's really what it is. Product-led growth transformation, like what you're gonna embark on going from sales-led to product-led, is really where you're trying to create your product as the most effective team member on your team. One that works 24/7, day in, day out. They never take vacations, and luckily they scale infinitely. That sounds like the best deal to me. Now, your best salesperson should be the product, because it will demonstrate the value instantly without scheduling conflicts. And with a few questions, we'll ask people as soon as they sign up, what are they hoping to accomplish? What is your goal? And we'll deliver that experience. It should also become your best customer success rep by providing immediate support and guidance and really guiding people to the key moments of success in the product as easily as possible. It should also be your best marketing channel. So a lot of product-led companies benefit a ton from just great word of mouth, but you can also incentivize this by having people share links or share the product with other people or their team. And that's a really powerful way to just grow the total addressable market in your business and get more customers. And so this employee, your product, is going to become the single highest leverage asset your business can create. And so that's really what I want you to think about when you're building a product of business. Like, why are we doing this? Well, you're building something that's bigger than the entire business. It is the business, but it's going to be really, really powerful. But there's this harsh truth here, and that is that sales-led companies are easy to get started, but they're hard to scale. While product-led companies, on the other hand, they're hard to get started, but way easier to scale. So just think about that, because the next part I want to cover with you is really what are the common challenges with going from sales-led to product-led, and more importantly, how to overcome them. Because right now, 85% of PLG transformations fail, and that's just wild. And so most companies fail within the first 18 months, and it's not because product-led growth doesn't work. It's because they make these 3 fatal mistakes. So the first one I'll touch on, so you can definitely avoid it, is really just companies focus on isolated tactics. So they think about, okay, product-led growth as just a free trial. And if you think about that as, oh yeah, it's just a little free trial thing, you might just focus on your onboarding, your pricing. Maybe you'll launch a new offer that explains what the heck your new free thing is all about. And there's no integrated strategy. There's no understanding of, hey, who's the user? Who's going to use this product? There's not much consideration regarding, hey, what should we give away for free? Is it just a packaged up free trial, or like what's the outcome of this for people? So those are all really, really important questions to go through. Now, the next thing is no clear PLG champion. So whenever we decide to work with a company, we always make sure, hey, do you have somebody that is actively going to be working on PLG, like full time? They're leading the charge on this. Because if you don't have that, then that's really, really hard to make it work. And so that's the second thing that I would highly make sure you do have in store. So focus on the PLG roadmap we're going to be focusing on in, I think it's part 6, and then make sure you have somebody that's actually dedicated towards PLG. Now, the third thing is really just product sales conflict. So your sales team, no doubt, is going to try and resist PLG. At least most of them do at the very beginning. And it's really important to set the tone of what is this PLG thing. It's not going to necessarily take your job. It should, if they're good at what they do, it should enable them to focus on bigger enterprise accounts, not the small, super small accounts. Those ones should totally self-serve, because it's just in everybody's best interest that they go through it. And so when we work with big companies like ZoomInfo as an example, where they have a fantastic sales team, they're over $1 billion plus business, at the very beginning, we'll go through and say, okay, where does PLG make sense? And in many cases, it's like, oh, this very small accounts that are signing up for your product, that's really where we should focus, because you know what? It's just bogging down your sales team. They're spending so much time on these super small fish. So that's the 3 biggest mistakes and how to overcome them in your business. Now, what I want to talk a bit about in part 4 is, are you actually ready for product-led growth? So a lot of companies will say like, hell yeah, we're in. We just had our quarterly meeting or annual planning summit, and yeah, we're all in on PLG. And so they just like go running. And then there's no thought to, are we actually ready for product-led growth? So what I've prepared here is some questions to just get you to think about, is this the right time? And there's nothing wrong if it's not the right time, because it is not a now or never thing. This is something that every market will eventually become commoditized, And you should have the best go-to-market motion, which in my opinion is a product-led motion, or even a product-led sales motion, which is a lot more efficient than just a pure sales-led motion. So the first question out of 6 you got to ask yourself, is your market ready to have a PLG motion? So do buyers want to speak with a sales representative before buying? So in most cases, this is always like, hell yeah, absolutely. The research we've done in the SaaS space it shows predominantly 97% of people want to try before you buy. Now, some industries, it might not be as high as that. So if you talk to, let's say like plumbers or HVAC folks, sometimes when we work in those industries, we're like, you know what, it's kind of strange, but they do prefer to talk to people. Or sometimes even with a product-led company, we target a new market like Spain, and we're like, what the heck? People in Spain just want to talk to us? This is so weird. And so that is something you have to think about, is your market actually ready for this? And not every market is yet, as far as the majority goes. Now, the second category to go through is team readiness. So can your team execute PLG effectively? Now, there's a lot of skills you need to have. And that's actually one of the reasons why we have product-led implementers at Productled. That's our whole business, because many companies just don't have, let's say, like the right product marketer. You don't have somebody who's a pricing consultant. You don't have anybody who's really good at onboarding, or you don't have somebody who's really good at user research, creating a company level strategy that aligns with your product strategy. And so those are really important things that you should have. Even data and analytics. Do you have product analytics in place? Do you have a good growth process? And so just ask yourself, you know what? Do we have the team that is ready to execute PLG effectively? Because this is usually one of the biggest pieces that a lot of teams blunder with, where they go down this path and you know what, they just don't have the right team. So the next category is literally leadership buy-in. This is really, really important. So is your leadership team fully bought in to product-led growth? And it's okay if it's not, but that's going to be like an uphill battle. The CEO especially has to be fully on board, and I would work to get the rest of the leadership team bought into this as well. Now, the fourth category is literally just product readiness. So not every product is ready for PLG from day one. This is really, really common. So an example of this, when I was working at Vidyard, we launched a free trial of our, enterprise marketing analytics solution. And you know what? The product was definitely not ready. There was no onboarding in place. It was hard to get to value, and you did have to reach out to people to even upgrade and get to value in some cases. So our product wasn't ready. Now, had we waited, we fixed that, we would have figured it out too. We did learn faster by launching it, but that still was something where we had to say, you know what, it probably was more of like we got to fix that, make it a little easier to get to value before we should launch that, to give it a good chance. The fifth category is really tooling readiness. So do you have the right tools to actually measure if PLG is working? Now, in a sales-led funnel, most people are very good at measuring, okay, how many demos did we get? How many people showed up? How many people were given a proposal? How many people signed and show up rates? All that stuff. We have that dialed into the nines. Now, as soon as I ask a sales-led company, hey, what percentage of people who signed up for your free product got to value? It's like, oh, we don't know that. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's usually because they don't have product analytics in place, they don't have the right data, and then usually even if they do, it's not set up right. So there's some stuff to be done there when it comes to tooling to make sure you can actually measure if people are getting to value. Because if they are not getting to value, surprise, surprise, what's going to happen is they're not going to upgrade, because you have to serve before you sell, or else the whole PLG motion does not work. The last category to consider is strategic alignment. So does this actually align with your overall vision for the business? If you think of like Canva, what's easy about Canva is like their whole vision is to democratize design so that anybody can truly design anything. And so it's like, okay, how are we going to do that without a self-serve motion? Well, it's like, well, we have to. And so really think about your overall vision. Is it very clear that you have to have a PLG motion at some point, or is it very vague? Because it has to be very strong for you to go through. And so what I would highly recommend is just go through those 6 questions with your leadership team to see, where do you stack up? Are you fully ready to jump into this right now? And maybe if you're getting a lot of yellows, on these sections that you should just say, okay, maybe we pause a little bit here, fix up our tooling so we can measure success. Or if our product's not quite ready yet, maybe we invest, a couple months in improving our onboarding and making sure we're giving away the right free stuff before we just go full hog and launch something and be like, oh yeah, PLG doesn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't work when you do it like that. That's for sure. And so that would be my recommendation. So the next section we're going to go through is part 5, which is actually building a business case for product-led growth. And this is one of those things where, you could go down endless rabbit holes here, but I wanted to make this super simple and just give you a formula for this. So we're going to measure the total value of product-led growth based on 3 factors. So the first one is revenue impact. So how much this is going to help your business make more money. Second is cost savings. So how much is this going to actually save your business every single month and over the course of a year? And then we're going to subtract the total investment because surprise, surprise, product-led growth isn't free. And I'm going to share some things that, many businesses just don't invest in. And I think that's actually causing them to just not see great results with product-led growth. So I'm going to give you an example of a company that is thinking about working with us. They're going from sales-led to product-led right now, and they are at 50 million. And so their profit and their sales-led is really low. It's actually 0. And so number of employees is about 350. And target annual growth rate is actually quite high. So they are at about 20% as their goal. So the revenue per employee is modest. It's okay. It's 142,000. And then for go-to-market metrics, we're going to look at their website. So they're this is every single month, they get about 50,000 people on their site. And number of free signups is somehow works out to 15,000. And they get about 3,000 demo requests. Okay, so counts that reach value. For them, they actually don't even know. Back to you, most people don't know what that looks like for sales-led companies. Number of new paying customers every month, this is about 1,000. And customer lifetime value, on average for them, this is about 3,000. And so already this should be a bit of a red flag. It's kind of low. And this is a bit of a volume play for this specific company. And customer acquisition cost is about half of the customer lifetime value. And annual churn rate, this is for ARR. It's 85%. So here, let's just should be a percentage. But all right. So they don't have a product-led implementer, and they do have a product UX designer. They don't have a growth PM or head of PLG that's kind of leading this internally. So there's really just the product-led service level. So do they need strategic support? So just somebody to kind of walk them regarding hey, here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do. We also offer implementation support, which is really specific to helping them roll out the projects. But since they don't have a growth PM or head of PLG, what's going to happen? Even if we jump in here and be like, hey, we're going to help you implement this and we're good to go. It's well, you need somebody to delegate that stuff too. And so we can actually execute that and work with their teams. They get assign us their product designer or their current up and coming PLG implementer internally. So the other tools that they have, so they don't have product analytics tool, they don't have a user onboarding tool, they don't have an experimentation tool right now, but they do have communication support tools. So the reason we ask these questions is just to gauge what have you already invested in when it comes to what we need to see success. So here you have the number of new small accounts, expansion revenue, churn reduction, and then we go through just the total 3-year revenue generation potential here. And it also shares just some of the assumptions of what we're making in order to get these calculations as well. So you can go through that. And then for the cost saving analysis, this is where we can save a ton of money, especially on commissions in the smaller accounts and reducing the CAC and then just sales time redirection. So that works out nicely. And it just goes to the end, puts everything together for project costs. So team investments, they will need to hire the growth PM or head of PLG. This is just basic averages of what that looks like. And then we have the tooling and total investment. So here, if this is literally the first time you're going through like, oh, there's a cost to this, you'd be like, oh, okay, we have to actually invest something. Now, I did mention I was going to share where most people underinvest, which the place most companies underinvest when it comes to the project investment is always on the like consulting, implementation support side. And because they do that, they think they're saving a lot of money. They're like, hey, everything we don't invest in the project, like hiring product-led for this part, and although it's 30,000 per month, that's a lot of money. Well, then you end up paying for it substantially when you don't hit your specific goals, or you launch your product-led growth motion and the first 6 months it's super underperforming and you're like, oh, we're losing about $60,000 or $100,000 per month in lost opportunity cost. And that's the biggest cost you're going to lose out on if this does not work out. So this is a really simple way to just map out what is the overall ROI for it. And you can go through our article as well that goes through the actual business inputs that you should go through, and also create your own calculator if you want. You can just type in all of these facts. Do you have some of these pieces in your business or not? Do you have this for the revenue impact to really see and forecast what is going to be the biggest difference for you? And one thing I will say about the cost savings is we're very conservative in that ROI calculator there. There's some companies here are spending a small fortune every single month on support and customer success. And that is a big opportunity for you to really just say, hey, why are we having 3 calls with every new customer? We could get that down to maybe 1 call, or ideally 0 calls. It's just the product that is guiding people. So that's what you have to look at. And here with the total investment, we do break it down into implementation, what it costs to work with us, technology stack, team additions, make sure you have a fully resourced growth team as well that can actually do stuff in your product. That's great. And now you get your total ROI. So the part 6, what I want to talk a bit about is how to actually roll out product growth step by step. So this is really a full breakdown of the product-led system, which has generated over $1 billion in self-serve revenue across 400 plus companies. So it's proven to work. Here's a high-level overview of it. At the very beginning, what we're going to focusing in on is building a winning product-led strategy for your business. And once we do that, that whole next step is really just getting effortless self-serve customers. So those are people that can sign up, get to value, and upgrade without talking to you. Then the last phase is really just what we call a scalable growth process. So we'll make sure we're always tracking the right data, so at all times what is the biggest bottleneck in your business. And once we know that, then we can build a growth process that's built on good data and make sure we're launching experiments every single week to tackle whatever that biggest bottleneck is. If it's, let's say, not getting enough signups, okay, great. We're launching a new above the fold homepage section. We're launching, maybe it's a new pop-up. We're launching all these things that will help you get more signups. And the last part of this is just making sure you have the right team in place to really scale your product-led growth motion. And you can read the full article linked to below that goes through everything here in much, much more detail. But that's a high level. You can also read the product-led playbook that goes through the entire product-led system and much more detail. So the last piece here is, how do you get started? So many sales-led companies, I think, botch this part. So this is why I included it, because if you don't start with the right piece, and then everything else just seems so hard. So I've touched on this one piece, which is there's really just finding your PLG wedge or your beachhead. What is going to be the easiest way for you to, get your feet wet with product-led growth without, back to the core part of all of this, without disrupting your current sales-led funnel. So the first thing is SMB Segment Separation. Essentially, this is when people are about to, this could be in your current demo flow. If you ask the question hey, how many employees do you have? And if they're like, oh, I'm self-employed, boom. Hey, we have this free trial for you. And you can introduce that free trial to the people that are probably going to be a much smaller fit for your sales team to actually close and enroll. And so that is one thing where is your product gets better and better. It might start with self-employed. Then it's like, hey, the people that are from 1 to 10 employees, great. They also go to the free trial. And then eventually, once you start to see that that is working, you have a good free to pay conversion rate, then you can open it up so everyone can decide for themselves, do I want to start for the free option or do I want to sign up for the demo? Now, the second strategy is product-led expansion. So this is really just thinking about, we're not touching the front end of your funnel. We are just looking at who's already using your product, who's getting a lot of value from it, and who is at a great time to potentially upgrade or get cross-sold different products and services that we do offer. And so this could be an in-app product bumper where we just launch it, and really quick, you'll see you just make more money from your best customers that love your product. And so that's a very simple strategy that you can roll out with customer success. The third one that we've seen pretty frequently with our clients as well is a geographic market entry. So this is really important if you want to, let's say you're operating out of Australia you want to test out moving into the US market. And so you're like, okay, great. We're gonna have a free trial there. It's hard to have calls there at that time anyways. So let's try this free motion at that time in this new market. And that's a really great low risk way to test it out and see if that works for you. The fourth strategy, this one's very common. We did this at Vidyard, which is a product line extension. So our first time we launched a product-led motion, it did not work. And then we decided, okay, nobody's uploading a video. And so we gotta solve for that, make that easy. So we launched a Chrome extension. And in that Chrome extension, we made it very easy for people to create a simple video and send it to anyone. And so that's another way. If you go through the model components of the product-led system and you're like, hey, you know what? We're not actually solving the beginner problem in our market, then that is a multi-million-dollar opportunity you should look into, is creating a new product to do just that. So there's a lot of things we've gone through so far. What I want to end with is really just part 7, which is successful product-led transformations. So there's a case study here, which I'll share, which is just about Boomi, which went from, they're a $4 billion enterprise that spun out of Dell.com. And their CEO was really just focused on how can we get more people to really try out our product. And they had this mission of like, we need a $50 per month product and we need to get it out in the market. And so what was so cool about Boomi is their head of PLG just kind of took this, our whole approach and system, and really just implemented it to the nines. They built their whole product-led growth team. They implemented the winning product-led strategy. They went through, got effortless self-serve customers that were able to get to value on their own and upgrade on their own. And then they were able to build that scalable growth process until that they're like, this is working. This is driving 10% of our overall business. And then that just became the way Boomi went to market at the end of the day. And so there's more case studies in the article. I can definitely share that as well below. But one thing I want to wrap up with here is, how do we actually help you with scaling and going from sales-led to product-led? That's what we've helped many companies do at product-led, but many people just don't know, how do we actually do that? So our whole approach has, changed over the years. But one thing that has stayed true is we love partnering with companies where we can pair you with a dedicated product-led implementer. So this is somebody who is not a consultant. They are a product-led operator. And so what they do is they implement the product-led systems that we've built out to help you go from sales-led to product-led. And since we've done this many times with other companies, what's different about this is we actually have a structured approach. We're not winging it. This isn't our first rodeo. And when you're making a big monumental shift like this, it's extremely helpful to have somebody who can spar with you to help you make those big, difficult decisions where you don't always know what is right for your business. So if you're interested in working with us, make sure to head on over to productled.com where you can learn more about working with a product-led implementer. And I hope you in the comments below share what was your number one takeaway from this of going from sales-led to product-led. Bye for now.